Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor P. Bhaskar Reddy, Principal Investigator of the subject Indian Culture. In the present module of the paper Outlines of Indian History, we are going to learn about the major dynasties of South India that ruled over the region from 753 to 1300 Christian era. It is known that in South India, since the beginning of the Shatavahana age, it was ruled over by major dynasties with independent powers. Particularly from 6th century AD onwards, the Chalukyas and the Pallavas dominated its destinies. After the declining of the Chalukyan dynasty, from 753 up to 1300, it was a period of political emergence in South India, where it witnessed the rule of Rashtrakutas, Kalyani Chalukyas, and later on in the 12th and 13th centuries, the Yadavas of Devagiri, Kakatiyas of Warangal, Hoysalas of Dwarasamudra, and Pandyas of Madurai. Hence, the learning objectives of the module are the emerging political powers in Deccan and South from the period 753 to 1300 as an introduction. Then the Rashtrakutas of Manyaketa, their political importance and their contribution to Indian culture. The Chalukyas of Kalyani and their role in Indian history. The Yadavas of Devagiri, the Kakatiyas of Warangal, Pandyas of Madurai, Hoysalas of Dwarasamudra, their contribution to South Indian history and culture in the 12th and 13th centuries, and with a summary. With these objectives, let us start our discussion first with the Rashtrakutas. The political history of Deccan between 753 to 1300 marked by the ascendancy of Rashtrakutas, emergence of Cholas, the Chalukyas of Kalyani and their subordinates. The Rashtrakutas dominated in the political history of Deccan between 753 to 973 CE, that is 220 years. Later, the south of Tungabhadra was united for nearly 2 centuries under Chola and Chalukyas of Kalyani. Towards the close of the 12th century, the two major powers were on their decline. In their ruins, the Yadavas of Devagiri, the Kakatiyas of Warangal, the Hoysalas of Dwarasamudra, and the Pandyas of Madurai constitute an important political forces in 12th and 13th centuries. Thus, since the declining of the Chalukyas of Badami up to the occupation of South India by the Muslims, the South India witnessed the rule of these major powers. Let us start with the Rashtrakutas and their importance in Indian history. Rashtrakuta dynasty is an important ruling dynasty over large parts of Indian subcontinent for 220 years. Manyaketa, that is Malkhed in Gulbarga district, was their capital. Regarding their origin, they are originally a Kannada origin and Kannada language was mother tongue. Dantidurga was the founder. Before Dantidurga, his predecessors Abhimanyu, Nannaraja, Karka I and Indra II were the feudatories of the Chalukyas. With this political background, Dantidurga, who belongs to that family, defeated the Gurjaras and captured Malwa in the initial stages. Later, he defeated last Chalukyan ruler Ketuvarman II and established the Rashtrakuta rule in the year 753. He had the titles like Prithvivalabha, Raja Parameswar, Dantidurga, thus successfully established the Rashtrakuta dynasty and ruled only 3 years. Later, the Rashtrakutas emerged as a political reckoner by further expeditions and invasions. Dantidurga's successor Krishna I, who ruled in between 756 to 774, completed the overthrow of the Chalukyan power and expanded his new kingdom in all directions. He defeated the Gangas and the eastern Chalukyas of Vengi and compelled to acknowledge his suzerainty. Besides political expansion, Krishna I was a great builder he was responsible to build the magnificent rock-cut monolithic Kailasanath temple at Ellora. Krishna I was succeeded by Govinda II in the year 774, and his ambitious brother Dhruva seized the throne for himself in 780. Thus, there was a internal rivalry for the succession of the Rashtrakuta throne, which affected the progress of the Rashtrakuta Empire. The next important king of the dynasty was Govinda III, who ruled in between 793 to 814. During his time, he achieved victories over Vengi Chalukyas, Pallavas, Gurjaras, and Palas. Thus, the Rashtrakuta Empire not only confined to Deccan, and even during his time, his territories extended up to North India. He was succeeded by Amoghavasha I, who had a long rule of 66 years. He was also called Trupatunga. He was the greatest king of this family. He waged several wars with Vengi Chalukyas, Gangas. He also made matrimonial alliances with the ruling families of the south. He gave his daughter in marriage to the Vengi Chalukyas, Pallavas, and Gangas. With this political and diplomatic relations, he protected his kingdom without any damage from various menaces. He was a great warrior but loved peace and avoided wars to the best of his ability. Suleiman, one of the Arab traveler who visited his court in the year 851, gave very good account of the administration of Amoghavasha. Thus, Amoghavasha considered as important ruler in the history of Rashtrakuta dynasty. Amoghavasha was succeeded by his son Krishna II, who in turn was succeeded by another important ruler, Indra III. Indra III, during his reign, invaded and conquered Kanauj, Paramaras, Banas, and Gurjara Pratiharas. Krishna III, another important ruler of this family, was the last great ruler and famous for his further expeditions. He defeated the Cholas at Takkolam battle. Besides, he conquered many principalities including Gangavadi, Bundelkhand, Chera, Pandya, Chedi, Kanchi, Nolamba, Malwa, and erected a victory pillar at Rameswaram to commemorate his victory over South India. He also was a great builder. He built several temples, including the Krishneshwara temple at Rameswaram. After Krishna III, the power of Rashtrakutas declined. He was succeeded by his brother Kottiga in the year 967 and ruled only 5 years. During his time, Paramara Sriyukta laid siege to Maneketa and looted the capital. Thus, the Rashtrakuta power further worsened during the time of Karka II. Karka II was the incompetent ruler. Taking advantage of the declining attitude of the Rashtrakutas and incompetency of the Karka II, Tailapa II, one of the Chalukyan prince, overthrew the king Karka and laid foundation for the Chalukyas of Kalyana in 973 Christian era. Thus, the Rashtrakutas lost their political importance and disappeared from the history of India. The Rashtrakutas, who started their political career after the declining of the Chalukyas of Badami in the year 753 AD, they became an important political power not only in the south and Deccan, but also in certain periods they extended even up to the province of Kanauj, and they fought with the great ruling powers of the north like Paramaras and Palas of Bengal. The Rashtrakutas not only showed interest in expansion and political issues of the India, but at the same time the Rashtrakutas contributed their might for the cultural history of the south. They laid a systematic foundation for administration, and they contributed for the promotion of economy, religion, and their contribution to art and architecture is immense. Now we can shift to our discussion. What is the contribution of Rashtrakutas to Indian culture? Rashtrakuta Empire, it is known that it was a big empire in the history of Deccan and brought political unification of Deccan and even some portions of North India. The administrative system was significant for its many features. The vast kingdom was divided into many divisions like Rashtra, Vishaya, Desha, Bhukti. These divisions were ruled over by Rashtrapati, Vishayapati, Bhogapati and Bhogikas. The empire was further divided into Mahamandalas, Mandalas, and Grama was the last unit. In the administration, the king was the head of the state and their kingship was hereditary. The administration of the Rashtrakutas was based on the principles laid in the Hindu scriptures. They had powerful army consisting of infantry, cavalry and elephants. Dandanayaka was the head of the army. For the maintenance of the state, the land revenue was the main source of income. They promoted the Arab trade by maintaining cordial relations with the merchants of Arab as well as the inland traders. The merchants had organized their separate trade guilds called Srenis. Due to the development of prosperity of the country, they issued number of coins. Coins made up of gold, silver and copper called as Suvarna, Gadyana, Darhama, Kalanju, Dharana were in circulation. These coins had impressions of gods and goddesses on one side and the names of king on other side along with the year of mint, which they provide much information to know about the monetary transactions, prosperity of the country and also the usage of various types of coins. Regarding their contribution to religious matters are concerned, the renaissance of Hinduism, which began during the Gupta era in India, it got a boost in the Rashtrakuta age. Many Rashtrakuta kings were devotees of Shiva, Vishnu, and number of temples were built for the gods and goddesses. However, Jainism was the religion of royal patronage. Amogavarsha was a devotee of Jain. Besides Jainism, Buddhism was on declining due to lack of patronage. During this period, people of all faiths, whatever the religion promoted by the ruling family, received the royal encouragement without any discrimination. Thus, the tolerance was the keynote of the Rashtrakuta administration. They permitted Arabs to build their mosques, particularly on west coast. The 9th century Arab traveler Suleiman, who visited the court of Amegavarsha, appreciated the general religious policy and adopted by the Rashtrakutas in the policy of tolerance. The Rashtrakuta period is an important period in the evolution of South Indian literature. This era was a period of transition in the development of particularly Kannada and Sanskrit. Education received greater importance where many of the Rashtrakuta kings extended their patronage to the scholars, poets and musicians. Among the important educational institutions that were established during the Rashtrakuta period, Salukti was an important center which was established during the reign of Krishna III. Rashtrakutas widely patronized the Sanskrit literature also. The important Sanskrit works of the period were Trivikrama's Nalacharita, Halayuda's Kavirahasya, Janasena's Adipurana, Mahaviracharya's Ganita Sara Sangraha, Shaktayana's Amogavrutti. Besides Sanskrit literature, the Kannada literature also saw its beginning during the period of Rashtrakutas. Amogavarsha's Kavirajya Marga was the famous work in the Kannada language. Among the important poets, the Trinity poets of this era, Pampa, Ranna and Panna, have made inestimable contribution to the development of Kannada literature. Besides this, the Rashtrakutas have a unique place in the history of art and architecture. Rashtrakutas, during their 200 years reign, they showed keen interest in constructing several temples of excellence. The Rashtrakutas were great builders and also patrons of art and architecture. The Rashtrakuta sculptors and architects have left the greatness in their works of art. Their art exhibits the grace, refinement and technical skill of very high order. They were master builders and excavated the mighty temples. Have a look at the Kailasanatha temple, Ellora, which was constructed during the time of Rashtrakutas. The Kailasanatha temple at Ellora was carved out a monolithic, that is single rock, during the period of Krishna I. It is an unique achievement and has no parallel in the history of art. It is an architectural marvel with its beautiful structures. Have a look at the architectural marvel of the Kailasanatha temple at Ellora. These are all the important art of the Rashtrakutas which was erected in the Kailasanatha temple. Mahishasura Mardini, Ravana shaking Kailasa, Ramayana panels which were depicted on the walls of the. Besides Kailasanatha temple, the Elephanta caves near Bombay also belongs to the same age. The sculptural art of the Rashtrakutas reached its zenith in all these structures. Particularly at Elephanta, Trimurti or Maheshwar Murti is the masterpiece of these caves. Have a look at Elephanta cave, its location and the sculptural pieces of the art. The structural temples have also built at various places like Maneketa, Pattadakkal, Mahakota, Aihole, Badami, Belur, Sannati, Rameswaram and several other places in their lengthy empire. Among that, the Pattadakkal is a complex of temples. Kasi Vishweswara temple, Pattadakkal, is an important one. The Jaina temple, which was also constructed in the same place. So far we discussed about the Rashtrakutas. Since the establishment of their dynasty, their role in the political history of Deccan as well as in the Northern Indian, and their contribution to cultural history. Now we may sum up the Rashtrakutas with few observations. Rashtrakuta Empire was the biggest empire in Deccan in particular and India in general. In the peak of its reign, its boundaries were extended up to River Kaveri in the south, Narmada in the north, Bay of Bengal in the east and the Arabian Sea in the west. The Rashtrakutas evolved a sound administrative system which became a significant factor for its many features and became guide to the later rulers. They also patronized Kannada literature, art and architecture. Thus, the Rashtrakutas occupies an important place in the history of India in all matters. After the declining of the Rashtrakutas, they were succeeded by Chalukyas of Kalyana. Now, we may shift to discuss the Chalukyas of Kalyana and their importance in South Indian history and culture in particular. Chalukyas of Kalyana, it is an important dynasty ruled over South India from 973 to 1190, another 200 and odd years after the declining of Rashtrakutas. The Chalukyas of Kalyana, also known as Western Chalukyas or later Chalukyas. This dynasty, founded in 973 CE by Taila or Tailapa. The kings of the dynasty constantly engaged in wars with their neighbors, the Paramaras of Malwa on the north and the Cholas on the south. Taila was assisted by his elder son Satyasraya, who became the king after his death. Satyasraya, who succeeded Tailapa, ruled in between 977 to 1008. He continued the aggressive policy of his father, his chief enemy being the rising Chola power under Rajaraja. During the reign of Satyasraya, in the beginning of 11th century, the Chalukyan power suffered much due to the rise of the Chola king Rajaraja Chola. Satyasraya was succeeded by his nephew Vikramaditya V, who after a short and uneventful reign was followed by his brother Jaisimha in the year 1015. During the time of Jaisimha, he had to fight many fronts, including invasions of Paramara Bhoja and Chola king Rajendra. The other ruler, Someswara I, is important king. During his time, an important took place. He was responsible for founding Kalyani and shifted his capital from Maneketa. During his time also, he continued the war against the Bhoja of Malwa and received his submission after raid on his capital Dara. He was responsible for the extension of his empire across Vidarbha, Kosala and Kalinga. During his time, in his invasions, the Kakatiyan chiefs assisted Someswara, and as a result, they rose to prominence in the east coast of Andhra. The Chalukya-Chola conflicts in Vengi continued during his reign also. He was a great diplomat than as warrior. The most important king of this Chalukyas of Kalyana is Vikramaditya VI, who ruled in between 1076 to 1126, nearly 50 years. During his time, he defeated the Hoysala king Vishnuvardhana and also the Chalukya-Chola king Rajendra Chola II. He started a new era known as Chalukya Vikrama era, which became popular in South India from this period onwards. Vikramaditya's reign in general was peaceful. Besides political importance, he also showed interest in patronizing poets and in promoting scholars. His court was adorned by the learned poets like Bilhana, the author of Vikramaditya Charita, Vigneswara, the author of Mitakshara. Thus, Vikramaditya VI is considered as an important king of the Chalukyas of Kalyani. The successor of Vikramaditya VI was Someswara III. He was a peaceful monarch. In his reign, the Hoysala Vishnuvardhana threw off his alliance to the Chalukyan power by establishing an independent Hoysala dynasty at Dwarasamudra. Thus, the Chalukyan territories were reduced to Deccan. The disintegration of the Chalukyan power, which started during the time of Someswara III, further it was declined during the time of Jagadai Kamala II and Tailapadi III. Particularly during the time of Tailapadi III, the Deccan was divided into small kingdoms of similar status. Thus, the Chalukyan power was beginning to dissolve by 1157 itself. Because the Kalachuris-Bijala's revolution, who assumed imperial title and occupied Kalyani in the same year. With the Kalachuris revolution, the Chalukyas of Kalyani lost their political importance for certain period, and once again they gained some importance during the time of Someswara IV, the last ruler, who ruled in between 1183 to 1190. In the year 1183, he became the ruler after sweeping away the Kalachuri power. The Kalyani Chalukyan dynasty came to an end in the year 1190 when its ruler Someswara IV was overthrown by their subordinate, the Yadavas of Devagiri. The Chalukyas of Kalyani, who rose to prominence after the declining of the Rashtrakutas, played an important role in the political as well as cultural history of India for nearly 200 years in 10th and 11th centuries. They became the main contenders for the supremacy over South India, where they fought many battles with Cholas as well as the rulers of North. In the ruins of the Chalukyas of Kalyani, in the 12th and 13th centuries, many dynasties rose to importance in several provinces of the south. Among that, the Yadavas of Devagiri, Kakatiyas of Warangal, Hoysalas of Dwarasamudra, Pandyas of Madurai were important. Now, we turn our attention to know about the Yadavas of Devagiri and their place in Indian history. The Yadavas of Devagiri, who rose to prominence in the Deccan with their capital Devagiri, they ruled from 1190 to 1307. The Yadavas claimed to the family of Yadu, to which the epic hero Krishna belonged. The Yadava kingdom of Devagiri was founded by Billama. He defeated both the Kalachuri and western Chalukyas. He established his capital at Devagiri, that is located in modern Daulatabad. Henceforth, the family was known as the Yadavas of Devagiri. Billama was at first successful and overran the dominions of the Hoysalas. Later, Ballala II defeated Billama and forced him to leave the Hoysala country. Thus, there was a rivalry between the Yadavas of Devagiri and Hoysalas of Dwarasamudra for sharing of the boundaries. Billama's son Jaitrapala or Jaituki defeated the Hoysalas. He wrested back the territories acquired by Hoysalas. He established the undisputed supremacy over the family in Deccan. He made extensive conquests in north. He conquered Lata. He defeated the king of Malwa and also the Mohammedan ruler of north, the Kalachuris, Chedis of Chhattisgarh and Jabalpur. He also declared a war against the Kakatiya Rudradeva of Warangal. By killing him, he took his nephew Ganapati Deva as captive. Thus, Jaituki occupies an important ruler of this family who was responsible for the successful campaigns of the Yadavas. His successor Singana, who ruled in between 1200 to 1247, once again the Yadava empire attained its greatest extent. During his time, he invaded Gujarat twice in the year 1231 and 1237. In the south, he waged a war against the Hoysala Ballala II. The Yadava throne, after Singana, descended to his grandson Krishna I. This Krishna I was a great pattern of religion and performed many sacrifices. Mahadeva, another ruler of the family, fought a successful war against Kakatiya Rudramadevi. He captured her elephants, some of her insignia, but spared her life as she was a woman. The hostilities between Hoysalas and Yadavas continued during the time of Mahadeva, who was a contemporary of Ballala II. Ramachandra was the last ruler of this dynasty. During his time, he was attacked by the Alauddin Khilji, the then governor of Kara, where Alauddin Khilji invaded over the Yadava kingdom. During this invasion, Ramachandra was defeated but pardoned. However, the rulers of Devagiri proved unequal to the task of defending the Deccan against the northern invaders. Once again, his territory was again attacked by Malik Kafur, the lieutenant of Alauddin. During his reigning period, he was taken as a prisoner in 1306. The Yadavas of Devagiri, who dominated the districts of Deccan, particularly in North Deccan, they not only showed interest in the political matters, but also they contributed for the promotion of Indian culture. The rulers of Devagiri encouraged particularly art and letters. The king Singana's chief astronomer was Changadeva. He was the grandson of famous astronomer Bhaskar. During his time, he founded a college of astronomy for the study of works of Bhaskar. The age of the later Yadavas saw the composition of famous works of Hemadri, Bopadeva and Jnaneswara. The great Maratha saint Jnaneswara flourished during the reign of Ramachandra, and he completed his Marathi exposition of Bhagavad Gita. Besides the Yadavas of Devagiri, another important dynasty that rose to prominence in the south, particularly in the regions of Andhra and Telangana are the Kakatiyas. The Kakatiyas are one of the major dynasties that ruled over the present Telangana and Andhra regions from 1000 to 1323. The 3 centuries they shaped the Telugu history and civilization. The early members of this family were in the service of Rashtrakutas, later shifted their alliance to the Chalukyas of Kalyana. The early Kakatiyan chiefs like Beta I, Prola I, Beta II and Prola II became the loyal subordinates of the Kalyani Chalukyas up to Jagadeka Malla II. After the declining of the Chalukyas of Kalyani, Rudradeva founded the independent Kakatiyan dynasty in the year 1158 and they ruled their principalities with independent powers from 1158 to 1323 AD up to the invasion of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Rudradeva was the first king of the dynasty to overthrow the subordinate position of the Kakatiyas and asserted independence. The Hanumakonda inscription of 1162, a lengthy document of historical value, gives graphic description of his military exploits. He established his sway over coastal Andhra by defeating the Velanadu Cholas, the subordinates of the Chalukya Cholas. Rudradeva laid a foundation for a new fort at Warangal, which it became a famous capital for the Kakatiyas. Besides the foundation of the dynasty, he was a great patron of art and literature. He constructed the majestic Rudeshwara temple, also known as 1000-Pillar temple. He was a great scholar in Sanskrit who wrote the work Niti Sara. Rudradeva died in the battle with Jaitugi, the Yadava king, in 1195. Have a look at the magnificent Warangal fort and its structures. Ganapati Deva was the other important ruler of the family, ruled in between 1199 to 1263. The death of Mahadeva in the Yadava invasion and the captive of Ganapati Deva led to the outbreak of disorder in the kingdom. However, Ganapati Deva's prison did not last long. He was set free and sent back to the kingdom. After his accession, his rule of nearly 60 years is one of the most brilliant epoch in the history of Andhra country. He took advantage of the dismemberment of the Western Chalukyas as well as the Chalukya Cholas. Taking advantage of that, he brought the entire Telugu speaking area under his sway, either by war or by diplomacy. He protected the country from the aggressions of Pandyas, Hoysalas and the Yadavas. He was a great general who lost only one war with Jatavarma Sundara Pandya of Madurai. After that, he relinquished power in favor of his eldest daughter, Rudrama Devi. During his time, he bestowed attention on the development of irrigation and also in the promotion of agrarian economy. He revived the seaborne trade of Andhra country. During his time, Motupalli in east coast became an important fort city. He gave required protection and safety to the traders by issuing Motupalli inscription, Abhay Sasana, in the year 1245. He was also a great builder of temple who was responsible for the construction of the magnificent artistic temple of the Kakatiyan age, Ramappa temple, Palampeta. After the death of Ganapati Deva, he has no male heirs. Thus, he has chosen his daughter Rudrama Devi as his successor. Rudrama Devi was one of the important ruler of the Kakatiyan family. The accession of Rudrama Devi to the throne was a memorable event in the annals of South India because he was the first woman ruler in the history of the South. During his time, the Yadava king Mahadeva, he invaded once again and besieged Warangal fort. Rudrama Devi was a woman of fearless courage. She fought 15 days and defeated the Yadava forces and even chased their armies up to the walls of Devagiri. To commemorate the victory, she took the title Raya Gajakesari. In another expedition, she proceeded to the south to suppress the revolt of a chieftain Ambadeva, who was supported by Pandyas and Yadavas. In a great war that ensued between Rudramadevi and the allied forces of Yadavas and Hoysalas. Rudramadevi and his general Mallikarjuna lost their lives in the battlefield. Thus ended the romantic reign of Rudramadevi. Though Rudramadevi was a woman, was undoubtedly one of the greatest rulers of Andhra. She was the valiant and courageous fighter with great abilities of general to lead her men in war. She took active part in the administrative kingdom, and during her reign she introduced several innovations in the provincial system. She was the responsible for the introduction of Nayankara system, which became popular in South India during the Vijayanagara Empire. During his time, Marco Polo, a Venetian traveler who paid a visit to the kingdom, he speaks highly of her administrative qualities and benign rule. Thus, the Kakatiyas presented a great ruler to the Indian history, where she proved herself as a great king and administrator. After the death of Rudramadevi, Prataparudra succeeded her. Prataparudra was the last king. He fought battles throughout his reign of 30 and odd years. He suppressed the revolts of Ambadeva and re-established the Kakatiyan power in the south. He defeated the Yadavas and also Pandyas. Thus the Kakatiyan kingdom reached its watermark and the southern frontiers touched up to Kanchi. But however, when the Prataparudra ruling the Kakatiyan kingdom with peace and prosperity, all of a sudden the Delhi Sultanates began to knock at his gates. Since then, he compelled to spend the rest of his reign for the protection of his kingdom. Regarding the Muslim invasions over the Kakatiyan dynasty, Alauddin Khilji was the first emperor who crossed the Vindhyas and made invasions over Kakatiyan as well as other kingdoms of the south. Alauddin Khilji invaded the Kakatiyan kingdom in the year 1303 and also 1307, where he defeated the Kakatiyan forces and looted the prosperity, but he never tried to annex the Kakatiyan empire because he had the policy of only conquer and loot the wealth of the prosperity. Later on, the Tughlaqs who established their rule in Delhi, the Tughlaqs deferred the policy of the earlier Khiljis. In their new policy, Muhammad bin Tughlaq invaded twice against the Kakatiyas under the leadership of his son Muhammad bin Tughlaq. The Kakatiyan forces faced the attack skillfully in both the times, but Prataparudra and his family at last were suffered defeat and they were taken as a prisoners under the command of Khusro Khan. On the way to Delhi, it is known that Prataparudra committed suicide on the banks of the river Narmada. Thus ended the glory of the Kakatiyas, and Andhra became a part and parcel of the Tughlaq Empire in the year 1323 Christian era. Another important dynasty of the south is Pandyas of Madurai. Let us know about who are the Pandyas, where they ruled, and their place in the history of India. The kingdom of Pandyas is mentioned in ancient Ashokan edicts and also Megasthenes account Indica. It is known that they played an important role in the political as well as cultural history during the Sangam age. But the Pandyan princes became the feudatories of the Pallavas when Huin Sang visited Kanchi in the year 7th century Christian era. Later, their family members Rajasimha, Varguna, who were the rulers of 8th century AD, once again they rose to prominence. Particularly Varguna, who ruled in between 765 to 815, was the greatest imperialist of this dynasty. During his time, the conflict between Pandyas and Pallavas started. Varguna defeated the Pallava king and subdued the local chiefs. Thus, the Pandyas came into political limelight once again in the 9th century Christian era. Srimar Srivallabha was the other important ruler of the dynasty. During his reign, he invaded Ceylon, defeated the confederacy of the Gangas, Cholas, Pallavas, Kalingas, Magadhas, and also the confederacy under the leadership of Pallava ruler. But the Pandyas suffered some reverses due to the rise of Cholas in the 10th century. This put an end to the independence of the Pandyas temporarily. Once again, during the 12th century, the Pandyas continued to grow in strength. They carried on their struggle with the rulers of Ceylon and Cholas. Sundara Pandya was the important king. During his time, he defeated the Chola king Kulothunga III. But Pandyas had suppressed the Cholas, the dominant power in the Tamil country. The Pandya imperialism retained intact throughout the 13th century Christian era. Jatavarman Sundara Pandya, who ruled in between 1251 to 1268, was the most famous warrior and conqueror of South India. The Pandyan power once again attained its greatest splendor. He fought many wars. He defeated the Kakatiyan forces. Ceylon and Kerala were firmly held by him. He confined Hoysalas to Mysore. During his time, Kanchipuram also gained importance, where it became a second capital. Maravarman Kulasekara Varma, also a great ruler. During this period, the rule of Pandyan kingdom was shared among the several princes of the royal family, one among them enjoying over the rest. Marco Polo, who visited the south in the 13th century, he has left a vivid description of the richness of the land, the prosperity of its state. The Pandyan kingdom was, however, short-lived, and their capital Madurai was plundered by Delhi sultanates in the beginnings of the 14th century. Thus, Madurai and Pandyan territory came under the control of Delhi Sultanate. The Pandyan kingdom finally merged into the Vijayanagara Empire in the 14th century. Hoysalas of Dwarasamudra is also another important political power of the south, which rose to prominence after the declining of the Chalukyas of Kalyana. The Hoysala dynasty attained considerable power during 12th and 13th centuries. The Hoysalas claimed descent from the line of Yadu, where Krishna belongs. They were the descendants of a general of the Chalukyan king, Vikramaditya VI. In the Hoysala history, Vishnuvardhana was the important ruler. He was the founder of this dynasty. He established the kingdom by conquering the land at one time held by the Gangas. He made Dwarasamudra near Mysore as his capital. He was a vigorous ruler and extended his empire by carrying on successful wars against Cholas and Pandyas. He was originally a Jaina, but was converted to Vaishnavism by Ramanuja, a great reformer. He was also a great patron of architecture and sculpture, where he built number of temples dedicated to Vishnu. Vishnuvardhana was succeeded by his son Narasimha. Later, Veeraballala II. Veeraballala II styled himself as Maharaja Adhiraja. He waged wars against the Kalachuri, the Kalyani Chalukya, and the Yadavas of Devagiri. He was also a great patron of Kannada literature. Janna, one of the most influential Kannada poets of 13th century, graced his court and was honored with the title Kavi Chakravarti. Narasimha II was the other ruler. During his time, he lost some of the territory of his father, but he claims victories over Pandyas and Kadambas. He was succeeded by Someswara Narasimha. Veeraballala III, who ruled in between 1290 through 43, he was another important ruler. During his time, around 1310, his kingdom was ravaged by the Muslim hosts under Malik Kafur, who sacked the Hoysala capital, Dwarasamudra. Veeraballala was detained in Delhi for 3 years and then released. However, on his return, he set about organizing the defense of his country against the further Muslim invasions, but they failed to revive the Hoysala Empire. The Hoysala dynasty at last continued up to the middle of 14th century, then absorbed in the rising new state of Vijayanagar. The Hoysalas, though they have little importance in the political history of the south, but their contribution to religion and development of architecture is immense and everlasting. Hoysala rulers were great builders who built several temples. The art and architecture and sculpture received great encouragement. They developed a new style of architecture, and their style is visible particularly in the Hoysaleswara temple, Halibet or Dwarasamudra in Hassan district of Karnataka. Have a look at the magnificent temple and its style of architecture. The Hoysalas also built marvelous temples. Among the important temples, the Kesava temple at Somanadapur and Channakesava temple at Belur are typical specimens of the Hoysala architecture. The Hoysala temples are generally ornamented with an enormous mass of sculptures and statues of very good quality. Have a look at the sculptural representation of the Hoysala temples. The entire temples is covered with the sculptures of very high workmanship known in the Somanadapur, also Channakesava temple, Belur. Up to this point, we have discussed the political developments that took place in South India after the Badami Chalukyan dynasty in the year 753 and up to the invasion of South India by the Khiljis and Tughlaqs. During this period, it is known that South India witnessed the rise of the several powers. The political history of Deccan and the south from the middle of 8th century dominated by the Rashtrakutas, Cholas, Chalukyas of Kalyana, Yadavas, Kakatiyas, Pandyas and Hoysalas. Apart from these families constituting the main dynasties, there were lesser rulers of smaller areas in Deccan and some of them claimed descent from the lineages of main dynasties. The South India has character of its own administration and its history generally independent that of the rest of India. Much has been written on political and culturally of these dynasties. With this discussion on the major dynasties of South India from 8th to 13th century AD, I hope you may understood the political developments in South India as well as their role in polity and their contribution to Indian culture. For more details, you go through the e-text self-assessment for better understanding. Thank you.